you would just press this button. Red means you're number one in the queue.
And it shows up there.
And it shows
No.
James Vaughn, active speaker. And you don't have to, like, you can, it's picking up my voice here. So you don't have to speak right into the microphone. You can be sitting where it is. So yeah, it's very simple. To vote, it'll say yes, abstain, no right here. And you would just, it'll show up once Angie activates the vote, then it would show.
There you say like one sentence.
In 2 minutes, we'll know if this works.
Red means hot.
Okay.
Okay, the time is 7 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to open up the Board of Equalization meeting and call it to order. In the 7 o'clock, the Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. So at this time, we'll have a roll call for the Board of Equalization. We'll start the vote for a roll call. Okay, thank you. Move on to item 1 on the agenda is resolution 2025-010, levying a special tax and assessment to pay the costs in street improvement paving for district number 553. Now I have staff report from Troy Shaben.
Okay. Troy Shaven, city engineer and officially first person to address the council from this table, so. This item is for the assessments of a paving district for Howard Street. The costs associated with the assessment were approved at the November 12th, 2024 city council meeting. This action gives the city the authority to levy the assessments against individual properties, which are included in the backup. You'll see the properties and the assessment amounts to each property. It's based on front footage, so the cost is split based on a percentage of front footage for each property. I can take any questions.
Came to light to me. I just happened to be looking at the market. I'm a realtor, just for the record, and I happen to be looking at the market. I happen to be looking at land. And this does pertain to 345 South Howard Street, correct? Is that the property? But this is being done in connection with that development, correct? The reason I'm asking is that property is now offered for sale on the MLS. Are you guys aware of that? Because I wasn't before today, before about an hour and a half ago. Are you guys aware that the owner of that, which is right now listed as South Howard Street Condominiums LLC, is up for sale? Okay. Is there anybody else from the city that's aware that it's up for sale? So I don't know how this affects what we're doing today, because a buyer could certainly continue with this, and I'm not trying to get in the way of anything like that. I just think that we as a council need to understand that it doesn't, to me, at least on the surface, appear as if the current owner is planning to be the one to develop this property. And I'm just wondering if anybody had information about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand Jennifer Dam was aware of this. Do you have any further information that you could share?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. I am aware that that larger piece of property is for sale. The current owner felt that it was too expensive for the larger development. My understanding, though, this street assessment is just for Howard, as it abuts those smaller parcels. And it's not It's more related to those smaller parcels and paving the street in front of those, and not the larger parcel that was originally proposed where Donna Street would run.
Are those, but does this, what we're being asked on today to approve, is that part of that 8.44 acre parcel? Because I'm confused on what we're trying to approve here. That's all. I just want to make sure I understand what I'm voting on.
My sheet does not list things as addresses, it lists it as parcels. I'm assuming if you're talking about the larger parcel, it's that parcel, parcel 2. Parcel 2 is included on the assessment. It would be the second one down, and it's a much, much larger assessment number. It's the 75,000 as opposed to the 25s and 27s and 5s on the rest of the items. So it's based on that. You can see from that exhibit, it's a much, much larger frontage, and therefore the assessment is larger. So that lot 2 is included in the assessment amount and would be levied against the lot, not against the owner. So if it were to transfer, it would be attached to the parcel, not to the owner. So if the concern is that he sells the lot and is trying to get out of paying the assessment, it would be transferred to the new owner. Whether that's disclosed or not, that's a private sale. I don't have that information, but as far as the city is concerned, it's being assessed to that lot 2.
Okay, are there any additional questions for staff and council? I don't see any. Are there any comments from the public on this item? If there are, please come forward. Not yet. I'll open the public hearing. Resolution 2025-010. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council on this? If not, I would take a motion. Councilman Vaughn.
Motion to approve. Second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries, Mayor.
Okay, would take a motion to adjourn the Board of Equalization meeting. Councilman Jensen.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman Sukram. Please vote.
Motion carries, Mayor. 8-0.
We are adjourned. I'll now open up the City Council regular meeting. The time is 7:08. And the Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. This time we will have a roll call for the City Council regular meeting. Please vote for roll call.
8 present, 0 absent.
Okay, next on the agenda is mayor's comments. Would like to welcome everybody to the new city council chambers this evening. Just wanted to visit about that and thank many folks that were involved. As you know, as you can tell, this is kind of a work in progress as we're getting used to the room and the new audio video equipment and everything that went involved to do this. But this will be a great benefit to the public. We have new ADA bathrooms as well, and audiovisual equipment, which should improve the online feed, which our meetings are streamed to YouTube. And so I just want to thank Elevate Construction, did the construction. Jeff Shanahan was really critical in managing the construction process throughout the whole time. This is not as easy of a setup as you would think. There's a lot of moving parts in a difficult project to undertake. So I appreciate his work. Like our prior city clerk, Tyler Ficken, was also very much involved. He is now in Hastings. That's his hometown as their city clerk. And we obviously wish him the best and appreciate Tyler and his work. And Lottie Mitchell and Angie Olson. Angie has taken over as the interim clerk and has had to learn a new system in a couple weeks and manage that process. And that has not been easy. There's a lot of moving parts to this system, and as we work with it, we're gonna learn more and improve it over the meeting. So again, thanks for your patience this evening as we kind of break this in this evening. Also, want to thank Bizco. They provide the audio video, and then Rich Rader. He donated the pictures that we have in the council chamber. So our goal was to highlight all of our city facilities that we all should be very proud of. We have our new library, our city auditorium, our airport terminal, and then on the utility side, our wastewater treatment plant, our power plant. All places in Fremont we should be very proud of. And that was really, again, the idea of this renovation, is that this is the community's room, your council chambers. We should take pride in our community, and this is one way we can do that. If you look at obviously the state capitol and the United States Capitol building, there's thought and intention that go into places of business, of government. And so we wanted to, again, bring that into this room locally for the community. And again, have a place where we can, again, be proud of. And so I appreciate all the efforts that went involved to get it to this point. And again, thanks for your patience as we are, again, working with this. This is really our true first, meeting. I mean, we had test runs and things like that, but to have it and do a meeting, this is our first really go at it. So appreciate that. I would like to recognize our service awards as well for December. We have 7 individuals. Jim Butts, 25 years of service. He started with the city of Fremont in 1999 as a police officer. Deb Anderson, 25 years of service. Deb started with the Department of Utilities in 1999 as an accounting associate. She was promoted to accountant in 2023. Wyatt Schwartz, 20 years of service. Wyatt started with the city of Fremont in 2004 as a firefighter EMT. Andrew Dixon, 10 years of service. Andrew started with the city of Fremont in 2014 as a police officer. Kelly Drake Brown, 10 years of service. She started with the city of Fremont in 2014 as a police officer. She has since been promoted to police detective as of 2020. Chad Clayton, 5 years of service, started with the Department of Utilities in 2019 as a gas service worker. And here with us, we have Brian Powers, which is 20 years of service. Brian started with the Department of Utilities in 2004 as an instrument and control technician at the power plant. So just Brian, please come forward and be recognized. Is he still here? Okay. Take the picture and go. I get it. It's all right. It's all right. Well, he was here, had his award, and just, again, appreciate all these individuals for the loyalty to the community. We're, again, have such good loyalty within our city employees and our utility. They take ownership of their work. They care about the community. They take pride in it, and we believe every interaction with the public is important. And so we really try to do our best to represent our community to the highest standard, and that flows down to our loyal employees. So appreciate those. Yes. All right, well, that concludes my comments. We will now move on to item 1, which is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the January 14th, 2025 regular.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Now moving on to public hearings. Item 2, Resolution 2025-006 to approve a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility on property generally described as Lot 1, Menard Addition, generally located at the northwest corner of Deers Parkway and East 24th Street. We'll now have staff.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is a request for a self-storage facility located at the northwest corner of Deers Parkway and 24th Street. So it's on the Walmart side of Deers Parkway. There's a large parcel there that's open and vacant. The area is surrounded by commercial zoning. The screening that the applicant is providing exceeds the screening that's required by our UDC. There is adequate emergency access and fire hydrants available. They meet the requirements of sections 11-50404M of the Fremont Municipal Code and section 11316.05B. They will be required to provide a drainage plan that's in conformance with the Fremont Drainage Criteria Manual. That is the condition of approval. Staff recommends approval, and the Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 16th and voted unanimously 6-0 to recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Horner.
Jennifer, was there any discussion at the planning committee meeting about, well, one, has anybody talked to Walmart? Do they have any opinion on this since they're going to be a neighboring business right there? And then the other one would be, my other question would be too, has anybody talk any at all about that retaining pond and that's going to be right there at, 23rd Street and just, will that be cleaned up on occasions? I mean, those kind of depressions can tend to just collect garbage that's blown in the wind and everything. Would that be cleaned up occasionally, or is there any, or do we have an ability to go in there and tell them to clean it up or anything like that?
Okay. First of all, I don't know if anybody has directly spoken with Walmart. Menards is the property owner of this property, and they were the developer of this property. Letters did go out to all of the property owners within 350 feet. So Walmart would have received a letter notifying them of both the Planning Commission action and the City Council action, public hearings. In terms of the pond, they are showing an area for stormwater detention. I don't believe that will be a retention area, which would be a wet area. And yes, they will be required to keep it clean.
Any other questions for staff? Not seeing any. We'll now open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Pat Wewell. I am a real estate representative for Menard Inc., 5101 Menard Drive, Eau Claire, Wisconsin, 54703. As Jennifer came here and talked about a little bit, where we're seeking a conditional use approval for a self-storage development next to our store there at the northwest corner of the Deers Parkway and 24th Street. The proposed facility would be about 363 mini warehouse units and 43 parking spaces. A little history of how we kind of got to this in the Menards world here. You guys all think of Menards as the home improvement store. About 20 years ago, Menards did a pretty significant prototype evaluation, and we increased our footprint pretty significantly. And in that process, we were able to very effectively expand our existing operations within our current footprints, either by buying land next to us or developing on stores or on the ground that we already owned. However, in a couple instances, we had vacant boxes that we just weren't able to expand footprint. John Menard, being the entrepreneur that he is, decided that we needed to evaluate different opportunities if we can't sell these things. And After a couple years of trying to market these properties, we ended up opening a number of climate-controlled self-storage facilities on old Menard stores. Those have been in operation in Davenport, Iowa, and in Eau Claire, where our headquarters are, and West Burlington for a number of years. But as we evaluated that self-storage operation, we realized that this was really a very compatible use. We keep it next to our stores so we can control it under kind of our store retail development. We operate these in tandem between our corporate offices and the local store level. There's a lot of active involvement on the corporate side, but we do have a dedicated site manager, at least one per site, that handles the face-to-face, day-to-day interactions with tenants that need to kind of talk to somebody. Handles like opening units and doing all that portion of it if it needs to be. And then a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff actually happens at the corporate office. So we kind of run these the same way that we run our retail store operations. But the success that we had with running those climate control ones made us reevaluate kind of what we did next to our stores. So we started evaluating certain vacant property that we've had for a number of years next to store operations. We kind of boomed on that about 5 or 6 years ago. We currently have about 22 self-storage sites operating next to our store facilities. And there's 16 have been under construction for the last year with plans to open those early in 2025. And this would be another round of about 8 or 9 that we would develop hopefully here in 2025 and 2026. We develop our sites a little bit different than most self-storage operators. If you've looked at the site plan that's in the staff report there, all of our units face inwards. So you don't have any sort of unsightly looking at the garage doors, looking through a chain link fence. We kind of shield all that, and it creates kind of a uniform facade for one. That's a big selling point for us. We want to make sure our sites look as good as our stores do. And then number 2, it adds another layer of security. There's no breaks in our buildings that folks can get into. There's only one dedicated tenant entrance. In this instance with Fremont, we also have a secondary fire access point from 24th Street. But tenants can only enter once they rent, get a security code, and they enter that code to get into the facility. That's a little bit how we operate, how we got here. And if you guys have any other questions for Bernard, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Jensen.
Is these going to be climate controlled, all climate controlled, or some climate control, a combination?
Be mini warehousing units. There will be no climate control of this facility, but there are some outdoor parking spaces that would just be a big asphalt parking lot that folks can park boats, RVs, whatever they have. But that's a smaller area, like about 43 to 46.
Any other comments from the public? This item. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council?
I did have one other question, if you didn't mind. You talked about the parking spaces for RVs, boats, and the like. I assume that there's some screening that separates that view vantage point from the road.
All those will be interior to the facility. So again, all the exterior units kind of create an outdoor facade, and then you can't see anything inside the facility.
Are there any additional comments from the public or from council?
If there's no additional comments, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025.
Councilwoman Ganem.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? by council or staff? Councilwoman Gannon.
I would like to have 15 and 16.
Um, 17, please.
Councilman Corner.
19, please. And 18, please, Mayor.
Larry Marvin, 1945 Morningside Road, apartment 124, and I would like number 24 pulled.
24 is new business.
Ed Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I would like to have dialogue on items 3 and 4, please.
Are there any other items from the public to be removed? Seeing none, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 5 through 14. Councilman Von Baer.
Move to approve.
Councilwoman Gannon. Please vote. Okay, item 3 is a motion to ratify payments made from December 11th, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, and approve January 1, 2025 through January 14, 2025 claims and authorize checks to be drawn on the proper accounts. Would the constituent come up with their question on this item?
One of the benefits of public comment, especially on consent agenda items, is that the public gets an opportunity to weigh in on issues, procedural compliance, and actions of the administration, staff, and city council. One of the primary duties of this council is oversight and pre-approval of claims before the disbursement of city funds. In regard to the December 2024 claims and disbursements, I observed some procedural issues and actions that should be of significant concern to all of you as well as the taxpayers and ratepayers of Fremont. I noted that without any discussion at the December 10th City Council meeting, claims and disbursements covering November 27th through December 10th, along with a list of 13 additional incomplete items, were authorized by a consent agenda approval, and the next council meeting was assumed to be on December 31st. Simultaneously, and again without discussion, another consent agenda item canceled rather than reschedule the December 31st council meeting, and that was approved. This would have been the meeting where council expenditures covering December 11th through December 30th would have been disclosed and approved. I recognize that approval of these two agenda items created an unprecedented procedural conflict for the staff and this council. Quite honestly, I was dumbfounded that no one from the administration, staff, or council pulled either of these two items from the consent agenda to elicit discussion on how the remaining December claims would get approval before city funds were dispersed. This dilemma was brought to the attention of several council members, along with a suggestion that the council could and should hold a special meeting to fulfill their duty to approve claims before funds were dispersed. No such action was taken. Canceling rather than rescheduling the regular meeting and failing to schedule a special meeting to approve December 11th through December 30th claims resulted in an inappropriate and unwarranted transfer of authority over city funds. Council's inaction effectively forced staff to disperse over $6 million of city funds without pre-authorization and approval by this city council. One has to ask why the mayor or this council didn't seek or couldn't find a quorum for a 10-minute special meeting during the 20 days subsequent to December 10th for a meeting that would give approval, a procedure that has been used in the past. The elected members of this body had an obligation and a duty to meet and approve expenditures before city funds were dispersed. Inaction by the mayor and council resulted in unauthorized actions by the administration and staff. It has been stated in emails that were sent to the city council members that would give them notice of the December claims. This cover was not a help. No official council action can result of such email notices. A collective body quorum must be convened for approval of claims and disbursement of city funds. The currently offered after-the-fact approval of post-December 10th claims and the disbursement of funds already made demonstrate communication, procedural, and scheduling failures, as well as unauthorized actions. In summary, the failure to properly obtain pre-approval of all December claims and the disbursement of city funds was a breach of primary duty of this council and its commitment to the public for timely expenditure oversight and pre-approval city fund disbursements.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Yeah, comments from council? Councilman Jensen? Councilman Gannon?
I was going to make a comment, but I think we can go forward with it. I will second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, now moving on to item 4, which is dispense with and approve the December 10th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, January 7th, 2025 joint study session meeting minutes. With the constituent that took this off, please address the council.
Request to approve resolution 2024-299 authorizing the mayor to sign the settlement agreement and universal release with the Dodge County Humane Society and Forever Home Inc. Minutes of that meeting for this agenda item currently only repeat the agenda language, simply stating that resolution 2024-299 authorizing the mayor to sign the settlement agreement and universal release of the Dodge County Humane Society and Forever Home Inc. Motion was made by Jensen, seconded by Ganem, and approved by all others voting yea. I'm asking that this council amend the minutes associated with Agenda 29 because the minutes currently fail to accurately and transparently disclose all of the council's actions on an insufficiently described agenda item. As I stated at the December 10th, 2024 meeting, I believe the agenda item 29 is publicly posted, failed to comport with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act. LB 898 from 206 added language to Nebraska Statute 84-1411 sub 1 that states the agenda shall be sufficiently descriptive to give the public reasonable notice of matters to be considered at the meeting. Even the head attorney, Patrick Sullivan for Adams and Sullivan, publicly acknowledged this requirement in his discussion of item 28 that night. The Nebraska Attorney General has also rendered documented opinions that further state a member of the public should not be required to hunt up and read documents underlying an agenda of the public body to determine what's actually on the agenda. Both sufficiently descriptive and should not be required to read underlying document requirements of the Open Meetings Act were not fulfilled because the agenda item language itself failed to disclose that the resolution 2024-299 not only covered approval of the litigation settlement, but approval of the purchase agreement and the acquisition of the DCSH property, as well as authorization and disbursement of city funds for said property in the amount of $350,000. These actions could only be known by the public's reading of underlying documents. Due to the cited open meetings law requirements, these additional actions of the council should at least be noted in the official minutes. If they are not adequately disclosed, the minutes will not appropriately be memorialized and disclosed for all that was approved. The minutes should reflect when and what cost the city acquired the DCS property for. If they don't, any search of these minutes will be worthless if anyone seeks to know the details of the Dodge County Humane Society property purchase and its acquisition. For the aforementioned reasons, I urge you to amend the December 10th minutes so as to reflect the approvals granted for the Dodge County Humane Society purchase agreement and the property acquisition, as well as the approval and dispersal of $350,000 of city funds.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak on this item? Any comments from council? Councilman Horner?
As a comment, but if I could ask council, our legal counsel a question. Travis, in your opinion, do our minutes properly cover us legally, and do we meet the requirements in your opinion?
Yes.
Just another comment along that line. It's not like just because it's not in the minutes, it's on the agenda. Everybody sitting here knew how much we paid for it. I don't know if anybody else was, but I've been contacted by several people and told them what we paid for it. It's not like because it's not in the minutes, you can't find out what was done. Anybody who wants to can.
Yeah, I think one of the comments that was brought up at that meeting, though, is that my understanding of the Open Meetings Act is that it should be clear from the agenda item. And that was my question during that meeting. So that was, I'm not sure that was made clear in my own mind. That's my perception.
It's from the council. Would need a motion to dispense with and approve the stated minutes. Councilman Horner.
I'll make the motion to dispense with and approve the stated minutes.
Councilman Jensen.
I will second.
Motion carries 7-1.
$15 is a motion to approve the waiver reduction request by Fremont and Bergen Schools post-prom for use of Christensen Field. Of our staff report is Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. Oh, that one, sir.
Council and Mayor, Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. This is the annual request for the waive reduction for Fremont and Bergen post-prom for use of Christensen Field, April 4th through the 6th. I'm open for any questions on this.
We've done in the past.
Whole waiver. I think about 2 years ago, we went to at least covering that cleaning and maintenance stuff for about $650. Our board approved the $650 right now for our January meeting. But we're looking at our fee waiver reduction to try to keep a standard waiver that will be coming out in February. We have to make some changes to that application. It's an older application. We're trying to make sure it's up to date and try to get a standard fee so that we're not hopefully having to come back here and ask you guys for a reduction for those applications that they're asking. But if you want to waive it full, that's up to you guys.
Councilman Horner.
I may be a little slow, I guess. What are we approving that they're going to pay? The $650? Is that what they're asking to pay? Okay, sorry, I saw a green light blinking on me. Did you get any kind of pushback or anything from anybody with the any of the stakeholders in this event whenever you told them you were going to charge them $650?
I think they realize that that's pretty fair.
Thank you.
Councilman Jensen.
I'm just going to ask, should this, the new high school we've got going in out there, is this going to be afforded to them? Should they eventually at some point have a prom and post-prom and those kinds of things?
Just want to say thank you for working on something that would be consistent, so you don't have to be coming back and we do waivers and not waivers and kind of have a set schedule. Thank you.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
I've worked a lot of post-proms in my time. And I want to say thank you to making the facility available. And, I think the 650 is fair because it's a huge event and there's a ton of cleanup. So I think that's very fair.
Any additional comments for our staff? Okay, thank you, sir. Any comments from the public on this? Okay, seeing none, are there any additional comments from council? Councilwoman Ganem.
And no additional comments. I'd like to just move that we approve the waiver reduction request by Fremont and Bergen Schools post-prom for use of Christensen Field.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, moving on to item 16, which is resolution 2025-013 to approve work order 2 for construction engineering services related to the Cavage parking garage rehabilitation project. Goodness. Okay. We'll have staff report. I think we're
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Oh, Troy's coming. I'll leave it to him.
Troy Shaven, city engineer. This is for the construction administration related to the Cavage parking garage improvements. This is for the engineer to do the construction management. We couldn't enter into a construction management contract prior to them knowing what the scope of the job was, because if they only had to analyze the beams or replace the stairwell, that's significantly different construction administration than if they had to replace the whole top floor. So once the engineering was done and a recommendation was made on the improvements needed, we're asking to enter into an agreement for construction management for the engineer to oversee construction and answer any questions.
any questions for staff? Councilwoman Ganem.
No questions. I just wanted to hear some discussion on it because Cavage Garage has been up for a long time. And so thank you for providing that background.
Right, there's a unspecified amount for lab costs, and I assume that's highly dependent on what they find and how much testing needs to be performed. Do we have any sense of how much that's going to be above and beyond what we're approving? You know, I guess this question is, one of the reasons I was glad that this one got pulled is I just think anytime we're talking about the Cavage Garage right now, we probably need to do it outside of the consent agenda. But with that said, any idea on timing here on when this project is going to get underway and then possibly completed?
The items is to award the bid of the improvements. Our schedule right now is probably to start, I'd say, late spring and be done. It's not an extensive repair. It's pretty much filling in slurry, fixing some of the beams, replacing the stairwells. That's probably a 6 to 8 week construction schedule. So 8 weeks after we start, weather pending, I say it could probably be done by June-ish.
For staff? Councilwoman Ganem.
Further questions, I'll move to accept resolution 2025 public, sorry.
I'll keep your motion and we'll see if there's any public comment. Are there any comments from the public on this item, on the engineering for Cavage Garage? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion from Councilwoman Ganem.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Moving on to item 17 is to receive the traffic committee report for December 10th, 2024. Any questions from the council for staff on the traffic committee report? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, Troy, these are side questions. Do you have any update, just quick broad brush on the 23rd and Summers Light or Broad Street rerouting, truck traffic?
23rd and Summers and 23rd. I'll talk about the next phase, which is basically from Broad, Nye, and Summers. We got the warrant analysis back from the engineer, and the recommendation for 23rd and Summers is it does not, at the current state, warrant a traffic signal. They did analysis at 35 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, and 55 miles an hour, even though the speed limit in that area is 35. Even at 55 miles an hour, it did not warrant traffic signal. The 35 and 45 borderline warranted a four-way stop. It really warrants a two-way stop. From north and southbound traffic would have a stop sign, and then everything on 23rd would be through. That decision has not been made. That's going to come before council to decide whether you want a traffic signal there. There is one there now. We're not going to take it down. The final report is not in yet. 23rd and Nye came back, and it is borderline warranting a traffic signal, which means we'll probably leave it a traffic signal. It is, you probably noticed, it's flashing right now. We have equipment that we can replace that one with. It's not plug and play. It requires sequencing. Those traffic signals have programming mechanisms on the inside that our people do not do. We have to hire a consultant to do the programming on those. And it's not like computer coding, but that's what it is. I mean, and right now there aren't a lot of people, even in the country, that know how to code the programming of those boxes. So we're having a difficult time finding someone to replace that equipment and program it so that we get the right traffic signalizations. Our plan is to get it repaired as fast as possible and then turn it back into a signal. At some point, we may turn it into a flashing yellow, flashing red, but the plan is to leave it there as a traffic signal. The flashing yellow, flashing red would be if we have future problems with the operation of it, rather than take it down or put up stop signs. We would like to leave it as a flashing yellow, flashing red, but that's where we're at with that. And then the Broad Street signalization, that's scheduled for a complete overhaul. Those will be replaced.
In the near future, will there be an update on Broad Street truck traffic? That's been a contentious item ongoing.
One of our options is if we have approached the state to put up signage north of the highway north and then south of the roundabout to dictate, to basically say truck traffic, take the bypass. Enforcement becomes an issue when you're talking about trucks coming through too. I'll say this, I do think right now it's maybe a lack of knowledge is why you're not seeing. I don't want to say you're not seeing, because the bypass is taking a lot of truck traffic with Costco. I think the bulk of the trucks for Costco and for Hormel are taking the bypass. It's the grain people and the people that are just driving through town that are on. But I do think it's maybe an awareness issue. And with the Broad Street overlay that's going to go on this summer, I think when that gets done, a lot of the trucks that maybe take that route every day are going to, I'll say, be discouraged by the construction because it's going to really slow down traffic through that area. And I think through attrition, I think they're going to find another route and they're going to find out that that bypass is faster. So we're working towards trying to reduce the amount of truck traffic, but as far as something happening in the next month, probably won't happen, but we are in discussions with the state on trying to get signage to divert some of that traffic. One of the issues becomes if they don't divert, how do you enforce that?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question related to item number 2 on the Dovecotes Lake requesting, the no Jake break signs. And then the county and state officials apparently have advised residents that a sign could be installed if there's an ordinance established. Where would those signs be installed?
Or item number, you're talking about the traffic report? They would be along the bypass, like at the roundabouts. The new bypass adjacent to the lakes down there, heading east and west. You could have one there too, yes. It would be it's generally at the roundabouts where they would break is where the signs would be.
Councilwoman Lathrop?
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I just wanted to plant a little seed maybe. It seems strange that Nye and 23rd would have necessity for a light, but Summers and 23rd does not, because it seems as though Summers is a more traveled, more of a through road, whereas Nye is community based, and if you live back there, you go there. So just a thought for future reference anyway.
Not a traffic engineer. That was sent to a consultant to do the traffic engineering. I'm reporting what that professional engineer came back and recommended. We're going to bring it to you for final approval. Certainly, if you wanted to adjust one of those and be more safe and add a signal, that's the option that the council would have. We'll discuss costs at a later time, but their shocks, the cost for those traffic signals, I think you're going to be shocked. They're not 30,000. They're in the $500,000 range. So.
If there's no additional comments, I'll make the motion to receive the traffic report.
I will second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Is resolution 2025-016 authorizing the placement of no parking signs in the area of South Howard Court.
One of the, I think it's a leaser of the property, repairs large trucks, semi trucks, stuff like that, and must do really, really good business because there's always, lots always full. but is parking those trucks on the street when they're either being worked on or being waited to get into the queue. That street is 28 feet wide. Typically, our commercial streets like that are 32. They got a waiver to have a little less wide street, which kind of compounds the issue with larger vehicles. Another issue is that our snow removal drivers, they kind of they at the end of the snow route season, they will report to Kerry Hofford and the city engineer where they're seeing issues with on-street parking that affects snow removal, and they're having a difficult time with, if there were trucks parked on that road, they wouldn't be able to clear that street of the snow. They basically be able to really only clear one lane down the middle, which I think is probably a safety hazard. So the traffic committee is asking for approval to put no parking signs on South Howard Court. I'm sorry. I can take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a real quick question, Troy. I'm just vaguely familiar with that operation out there, and I've seen semis parked on Howard. Do you know if there's been any discussion? There's some empty lots out there, and I don't know if a temporary fix could be to work something out where that gentleman could park.
In the meeting, she indicated that one of the complaints was from the owner of that lot, who has tried to talk to the owner about not parking on the street and has basically been told, you really don't have any authority to tell me not to do that. The city's the only one that has the authority to do that. So he has been, or the owner of that property has been in contact with Kerry. That owner, my understanding is, owns the bulk of the lots in that area. There's probably 15 lots that run up that cul-de-sac and come back. So the owner of that property, my understanding anyway, is the one that's asking for it, and the bulk of those properties are owned by him. So there's a high percentage of property owners that are adjacent. It's one property owner, but a high percentage of the lot owners are asking for it. As they develop, I think it's going to get worse because you're going to have less street area to park, and it's going to be more drives. I mean, most of the drives out there are almost full lot width because of just, how many vehicles they bring in and out. There's not a 12-foot lane and 12-foot lane, 15-foot in between the park. It's going to be pretty much entrances to business when that thing fills out. So there will be no way to park on the street in the future other than if you're parked in front of somebody's access drive.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Let me put a little finer point on my question. My question is, could a solution be temporarily? I don't know if it violates some other ordinance or not, but could a solution be temporarily? Because there are empty lots out there. I don't know who owns them. I'm assuming it's the developer still owns a number of those empty lots. Could a solution be that the gentleman that's operating that repair business park some of that overrun trucks on one of those empty lots?
It's private property, and that would not be a city decision. That would have to be a deal that he would have to work out with the property owner. We wouldn't have the authority to allow them to do that.
Yeah, and I take Councilman Horner's point. Is there a zoning issue? Because what you don't want to end up with, and I get what he's saying, because I don't disagree. But sometimes, you give a little and you take a lot. I just think, so the next day you drive out there and there's 14 trucks sitting over there, and next thing you know, it looks like Sanford and Son out there, and so is there a zoning issue where you say, well, we probably shouldn't do that? Or is there an enforceable thing on the city streets where you say, you're only allowed to be on the street for 48 hours anyway, and then police can issue a citation? I mean, I don't know what that rule is. I've heard of it, don't know that it's factual, and I'm saying things like that. And the narrowness of the street just compounds the problem. So perhaps the guy that if he owns other lots, maybe he should just say, I guess I can use my own property if it's not being used.
I've seen areas that prohibit on-street parking, certain hours of the day, maximum times, you know, no more than 8 hours or whatever. That's not the item now, so if that's the way you'd like to go, I would have to go back to the traffic committee. We would have to review that, see, you know, if that works. First of all, is it a zoning issue? I hope Jennifer's still here. I'm not a zoning person, but I think it is. I think there's something in our code that says you can't have like a gravel or a dirt parking space in a commercial area like that. I believe it has to be paved.
Yes, I live at Deerfield. My name is Larry Marvin, 1945 Morningside Road at Fremont. And I live at Deerfield, and we all sign a note or at least we will not smoke anywhere on the property. Otherwise, it's $75 each time. If you want to take a smoke, $75 each time. So what they do is they drive out and they park on Howard Street. And some people think they're out there dealing drugs or whatever, but it's $75 if they're smoking on the property any place.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Any additional comments from council? If there are not, I would take a motion. Councilman Horner.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2025-016.
I will second that.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 19 is resolution 2025-015, authorizing the placement of 35-mile-per-hour signs in the area of Business Park Drive from US 30 Business to West Military Avenue. Staff report.
City engineer, this is for Business Park Drive, north of West Military on the west side of town. This is a request from the police department. There actually are no posted speed limit signs out there. And Business Park Drive is not in the municipal code listed under the speed limits for designated streets. So we went out and we checked the adjacent roads, the similar roads that are out there. They're posted 35. Checked some additional streets that were very similar to this in width and in location, what's being served. And it seems like 35 miles per hour is the standard for something in this type of environment. So the traffic committee is asking for approval to place 35-mile-per-hour signs on Business Park Drive.
You know, I have no objection on this. I just feel like this is one of those items, again, that we should give the opportunity if anybody from the public wishes to speak to it, do so when we're making a change in traffic patterns and things like that. This is why I took it off the agenda.
From the public to speak on this item? Any additional comments from council? I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion on resolution 2026-015.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business. Item 20 is ordinance 5703 to amend the text of the UDC related to the Wellhead Protection Overlay District 11-405.04 and Chapter 11, Article 5 land uses as they pertain to the Wellhead Protection Overlay District. This would be for second reading. We'll have staff review.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, Jennifer Dam, Planning Director. This is second reading of the ordinance. The proposal amends the wellhead protection regulations for this area. The intent behind this is to protect our wellheads, to protect our water supply, but also find ways that allows positive growth and development in the area of the wellhead protection zone. So in sum, there's a list of uses, all of which are mostly conditional uses in the wellhead protection zone. It allows us some additional oversight of those uses to make sure that indeed we are protecting the waters that we will be drinking in the future. It requires annexation into the city and connection to the city water and sewer. Again, the purpose for that is to protect the groundwater that seeps directly into our water fields, our well water fields, and protect our drinking supply. I would ask for an amendment. If you look under 11-50, I think it's 4C2 and then D2, the single family attached dwellings should be conditional uses and the single family detached should be limited uses. Those were flipped in how this ordinance was put together. So I would ask that you make that correction. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, under C2, single family attached dwellings would be listed as conditional uses instead of limited uses. And under D2, single family detached would be listed as limited uses.
Are there any questions for staff on this item? Councilman Horner.
Yeah, Jennifer, can you remind me just, I know this is second reading and I probably should have asked this at first reading. It just occurred to me. Why would we consider any use in the wellhead protection area? If we really want to protect it, why would we, what's the purpose of any use consideration? How does that benefit us? And specifically for a hospitality lodging house kind of thing. I mean, that could, I suppose, you know, a lodging house could include a lot of other kind of recreational uses and everything. Are there limits to what we're going to say the condition would be considered?
That would be conditional uses. The majority of the property in the wellhead protection area is private property. So we want to make sure that we are allowing people to develop the property, but have restrictions so that it doesn't create harm for the greater public. So having the conditional use permit, having the requirement they're annexed and connected to city water and sewer provides those protections. Some conditions that we might add would be to have a swale area around parking lots so that stormwater runs into the swale area. You have certain types of plant materials there that help cleanse the water before it seeps down into the groundwater. Certain uses are pretty low impact as it relates to our groundwater. Other uses would be very high impact. For example, we don't want a gas station in the wellhead protection area. We don't want a golf course or something where there's a lot of fertilizer that would run off and then seep into the ground that would contaminate the wells. But there are certain uses that would have a pretty minor impact. And so those are the uses that we've outlined here to have that additional oversight that could be okay in that area.
Any other questions for staff? Any comments?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Scott Osterhaus. I work for Olson, 601 P Street in Lincoln. Representing the applicant in this case is Western Sand and Gravel. You know, Western Sand has the sand pit that's south of the highway, south of the bypass. doing a residential development down there. They also own some property to the north of the lake. As part of that, part of the development, they're looking at doing some expansion in the future, not really expansion, but some uses in that area that would, that are in the wellhead protection area. So what's in front of you today is sort of a stepping stone or a first step, working with the city and with Public Works Department to fine tune some of the uses that would be allowed in that area. So knowing that it's a sensitive area and we need to protect it. This is what we're doing in conjunction with Public Works Department. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for the applicant? Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Seeing no other comments, are there any comments from council, additional comments from council? There are none. I would take a motion. This would be second reading. Council. Thank you. This would be, yes. So there is a motion to amend. Do that first. So Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to amend as was suggested there to C2 to conditional and D2 to limited.
Councilman Bond. I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0.
In to this ordinance as amended to hold second reading, Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to hold second reading of ordinance 5703 as amended.
I will second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Now have second reading of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning, subdivisions and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing an effective date. Second reading.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to new business. As item 21 to receive the fiscal year 2024 financial reports. We'll have Jen Knabb, our finance director.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, Jennifer Knabb, Finance Director. I've taken a different approach than we've done in the past for these reports in an attempt to just be as transparent as possible and clear and give you insights as I see them. We've got a strong city and a strong utility. We're seeing the benefits of the changes that we've made, as well as we've got an outlook on some key capital purchases. And so it's important to understand what effect that will have on our required cash reserves that we have for the city and for the utility. And so I tried to give you that insight ahead of the more detailed report that you will get in April. And I'm available just for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for the finance director? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, nice job on the report. Thank you. That makes it clear and easy to understand. A couple of things, Jennifer. Regarding, could you clarify a little bit the street funds versus the Beltway? You mentioned the interaction of those two funds. Could you comment on what that translation is?
Yeah, and just that in the year before, because we had the donation, and then in 2024, we didn't have it, so you just see a year-over-year variance. That's all that I was explaining there. No, that is the one number that I don't have yet, mainly because one of the last things that we do after we do all the unitizations is we do then the required true-ups and allocations between the city and DU, and then that settles in what the end kind of reserves are at the end. So we are still calculating that one. However, as you're aware, in the capital improvement plan, there are a number of big projects that are earmarked to be funded by reserves. But when I come back here next, it will have what is committed and what is uncommitted, and I appreciate your patience on that one. Let me come back to you on that one as well. There's a lot of moving parts as far as changes that the state legislature has made on what the art of the possible is. I see a lot of really fabulous things in the city and a lot of wonderful things going on. And as we continue to go through and look at what we've gathered and look deeper in on the numbers to see if we can find out some of the reasons for the trends, I think I'll have more insights for you.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Any positive and any constructive feedback so that we can just make sure that you've got what you need to make a decision.
Guess I'll also note, we talk about sales tax revenues. They are up we have 3.1% over previous year. We had budgeted more of growth, but we're still seeing some growth in sales tax, which, in this environment, a toughened environment that we have, that's still good. You talk about reserves, the amount of big projects that are on the table right now. You got the street department maintenance building. That contract's been awarded. We're starting that construction. The police department building, which that is going to be happening this year and next. The Broad Street resurfacing is another big project. We're going to have a variety of street improvement projects going on in 2025. There's going to be a lot of construction going on in 2025. And, that's another thing just for the public is there's going to be a lot of good things, a lot of growth, a lot of improvements, but it's going to create some inconveniences too with all the construction. We got the storm sewer jetting happening right now as well. And, it's a lot to take in. So we are working as hard as we can. Cavage Garage, which is coming up on the agenda, is another one. So again, you could go on and on with projects that we have going right now. And so, yes, our goal is to spend those down, get projects done that we need now. And, I again, thank you for your work on this report. Councilman Horner.
Speaking of the reduction in legal cost, would it be fair to say that that would be most attributable to a reduction in public records requests and associated fees from legal for those?
And the year over year change is not because of a drop in public records requests. We continue to have quite a few of those. Yeah.
Councilwoman Lathrop?
I don't have access to it, but with this report, how do we compare to other communities on those public records requests? I mean, is there any data stating that?
Is what you all had called around and commented on in the last meeting. I certainly don't know about what other communities have.
Ed Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I hadn't originally planned to speak on this item, but I have a few comments related to what's here. And I too would like to thank the finance director for a more detailed and explanatory report than historically has been provided. And so that information is welcome and much appreciated. I do have a concern, though, about a couple of things relative to the discussion on legal expenses which have been raised by a couple of council members currently. I'm one of those that have asked public records requests about legal expense. Unfortunately, I'm in reviewing those again today and looking at this report. I'm kind of amazed that I can't reconcile the overall legal expenses that are reported here and the overall legal expenses that were given to me in a public records request. They should be identical, and I don't find them that way. Moreover, would be helpful for consideration for the council and the finance director to perhaps augment what was here in the sense that there was a focus on public records request costs. They're fairly insignificant relative to the total $700 some $1,000 overall budget and the expense, even at $70,000 or $80,000. They're the small piece, so they're not driving legal costs in the major sense. It might be helpful in future reports if they would actually break down where the legal expenses are largely incurring. That is it litigation? Is it council support of meetings? Where are the legal expenses really being driven? Because you need to understand that, I think, when you're budgeting. What's important to me is that I've been told repeatedly there is a budget, a sub-budget of the legal expenses for Adams and Sullivan. I have scrutinized that repeatedly to find that Adams and Sullivan overran their budget allotment out of total legal expenses in all but 1 year in the last 4 years, insignificantly. And no one appears to be monitoring the contract requirement that says Adams and Sullivan must come to this council and get approval of any overruns over the budget. I don't believe that to be over the whole city legal budget, because that's not what they were allowed and afforded to spend relative to the budget. That's typically the answer that I've been given, is that, well, we're underrunning total legal expenses, that is $600,000-$700,000. So even though Adams and Sullivan overran $440,000 by $35,000, it's not a problem. I think it is a problem. If you are budgeting sub expenses within your budget, you should be holding people accountable, especially when it is a contract item. And when those items don't sync up with the public records responses that we get from the city through legal, I am really concerned about that. I'm very grateful for the information that was provided tonight in this report. I only wish that I could tie it out to the public records request responses that I got.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna say just for the record that just in doing the simple math, $167,000 in public records request. Call it, we'll just do the exact 167.7, just do the simple math, divide that by the budget. It's 23% of the budget. If you take the 167.7 and you divide that by the actual spend, then the public records requests are coming up to a much higher number. They're a 34% of the actual spend on the budget. I'm curious about those because in our research that we did for the legal expense and trying to understand, if the request for the raise on the legal expense was in line with what other communities are paying, we did more or less stumble across, asking, and it does seem as if our public records requests are one of the items that are significantly different from what I found from similar cities. And when I say significantly, they were very high in comparison, both in the number of the request and in the cost that it takes. And then in the other portion of this is just the legal expense for these. We do not track the expense that it takes for staff to gather, vet, and submit those items. So I think it's a good item to track. I think it's good for us to understand. And the other question that the council should be asking from that of itself is there anything we can do to maybe encourage less by doing better on transparency or something? I don't know what drives most of them. So is that something we should be looking at and trying to understand?
Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilman Jensen?
If we're done with comment, I'll make the motion to receive the fiscal year-end report for 2024.
That was second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Chris Shaman, city engineer. This item is for the construction repairs, to the Cavage parking lot. Engineering came back and we were very happy to see that the recommendations were only for the amount that they were. Primary repairs are going to be repaired to the areas where there was delamination, where the concrete, due to moisture or age, has started falling off of the beams in the walls. And then the two areas that are the worst are the stairwells where obviously the rain and stuff can come through. So the bids were accepted on December 12th. Staff is recommending awarding to Vote Enterprises in the amount of $247.30. Again, that would be for repair of the delaminated areas and then a complete removal and replacement of the two stairwells. I can answer any questions.
Yeah, I had a question. If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the exact number. Wasn't this a lot higher repair originally thought?
$300,000 for general repairs. if it involved actually having to get into the beams and remove like the upper deck completely, you could have been looking at, $1.5 million, $2 million, $3 million. Again, I say we were happy because it was deemed not necessary to do that. They thought they could do the repairs and dowel in the concrete, and the repair probably would have been a best case, worst case scenario was in that.
Yes, I also am delighted because I was anticipating $500,000 minimum just to get it done. Question I have, and this is just from my experience of serving with the airport, want to make sure this company, does anyone know, Vote Enterprises, assuming this is a first class grade A type company. Years past, the airport, we used a low bidder for a job and they disappeared on us and took forever, and it just was a real inconvenience. So I'm not saying just because that happened, this is going to repeat history, but I just want to make sure this is for example, when we used Paulson to do the airport repairs this year, we found out that they were just first class. The airports is what they do, and boy, they exceeded my expectations and everyone else's. So I just want to make sure a low bid is great, but let's make sure these guys are going to do the job they say they're going to do. That was my only question. Perfect. I understand. Good, okay. Right. Okay, very good, okay.
Councilman Jensen.
Jody Sanders, City Administrator. We looked at that earlier on when the 505 lofts were coming into play. The issue is enforcement. How do it's not the kind, we don't have controlled access like maybe some of the other parking garages like in Omaha or Lincoln, where you can control who gets in on certain levels, where this is leased property and not anybody can park there, short of having an officer standing there saying, show me your parking permit. We would have no way to enforce that with the kind of open garage area that we have. So we've not, there's been no consideration to do that.
I just wanted to comment on that, and thank you, Jody, for that insight on that. One easy fix on something like that could be, in a previous life, I worked in a fairly large downtown area and had as a perk a covered parking spot. This was in a very cold climate, a lot of snow, ice and things. So it was nice to have that. And we had a simple instruction. If you pulled in and somebody was in your spot, we were assigned a spot. If you pulled in and somebody was in your spot, park behind them and go onto your desk and make a call to a tow truck number that we were given. And they would come out, put your car up on a dolly, pull it out of the way, and they would tow the other car off and then put your car in the parking spot. I did that once and it actually worked.
I would also like to mention, I did speak to Chairman Missile again with the Dodge County Board. If you remember going through this process, the Dodge County Board did agree to a $100,000 payment toward the Cavage garage parking repair. So they are a part of this repair. And if you look at it, when we were making this decision, the estimates were in that $500,000 or more range. And if you look at where we're ending to repair it, to again, what we were considering to tear down and build new. I mean, this is I think a great value to be able to keep it, repair it, and have it be used. And then we also again appreciate the county's contribution as well. Councilman Von Baron.
Is there any reason we would not consider Councilman Horner's solution? that seems like a reasonable solution if we were to try to accommodate downtown development. Fairly simple, not difficult to administer.
I think we need to focus on fixing a public parking garage before we get into the parking lot selling business.
Larry Marvin, 1945 Morningside Road, apartment 124, Fremont. What you're trying to do is pick winners and losers. And then I want to tell you, if you're going to use my property and deprive me of it and give it to the 505 building, I consider that criminal favoritism. And that's politics. And people talk about corrupt politicians. If you're going to pick and choose winners, who gets it and who doesn't? Because I've been crying about parking for years. And when the 505 renovated, they put that big fence around there for a year and a half. Guess what? Samter's closed out. And he sits on the board for the taxation appeals. So if you appeal, he says no. But he closed out Grandpa's business. And so parking is very important for everybody. And so I just want to tell you, I look at it as criminal politics. If you're going to let someone have my public parking for their business so they can be more successful. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public? Any additional comments from council?
If no other comments, make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 23 is resolution 2025-014, extending the term of the Fremont Lottery Operator Agreement and adding certain provisions. This time we'll have staff report from our city administrator.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Jody Sanders, City Administrator. This is a 5-year extension to our lottery operator license with EHPV lottery services, or as you might know it better, Big Red Keno. This is a 5-year extension. The contract has called for 5-year extensions for quite some time. There are a couple of changes. An amendment that's being proposed would be to change the amount of the monthly maximum balance in the accumulated fund account, which I know sounds confusing, from 100,000 to 200,000. In the original contract, it talks about if at the end of the month there's what's considered a surplus, anything over $100,000 in the accumulated fund account, that basically the city would get half of it, and I believe the operator gets half. Is that right, Bill? It gets any overage. Over the course of the last 24 years, we've gotten a whopping $9,000. So it doesn't, at $100,000, it really doesn't happen much anyway. So moving it up to $200,000 is not going to have much of an impact on our operations, I don't believe. There are 2 other amendments. One is providing for a random number generator should there be something that impacts their ability to, a flood, fire, those kinds of things, that would change their ability to be able to continue to use the ball drop system that they have now. And then the second would authorize the sale of digital on-premise ticket sales. So people would actually have to be on the premise still, but they wouldn't have to go up to the counter to buy their tickets. We do have Bill Harvey here from Big Red Kino, that is here to visit or answer any questions you might have.
Business with the city of Fremont. It's just been a wonderful place to do business for the last 20, 24, 25 years. I think we started in November of 2000 as the city's lottery operator, and we've really enjoyed working up here and having our restaurant here, and it's been a wonderful community, and we've really enjoyed that time. We've tried to work hard to continue to earn your trust, and I hope we've done that in most cases. We really think that this could be a great contract again going forward with the next 5 years, with those changes that we discussed. The $100,000 to $200,000 change really just helps us manage that prize fund better. Again, like Jody said, it's not really going to affect payments to the city, but it lets us build up a little bigger prize fund and then use that to pay better specials, basically. So it just lets us manage that better. We're always going to manage that so that we're not making those overage payments to the city, which, as you can see, with only $9,200 paid over the last 25 years, we really try to manage it so that we're not, because we feel like if we're paying you those overage payments, we're not really doing our job of maximizing the benefits of the lottery to the public and to the city. So the RNG, we think, will help us just with continuity of the business. And then we think digital on-premise tickets will be great. Basically, it lets you substitute your mobile phone for paper and a crayon to write a Keno ticket. And, I don't know if you have kids or grandkids, but if you talk to them, they don't use paper for anything anymore. They do everything on their phone. And so we think going forward, this new authority that we've been given by the legislature a couple of years ago is going to be very important. So we'd really like to implement that here. Again, we're just really appreciative. I will mention one of the, we've tried to be a really good community partner, and one of the things that we do, I know the meeting's getting late, so I'll be really short, but one of the things we do is we do make math and science grants in our communities statewide. And here in Fremont, that's been a real success. We've made a number of grants to Fremont Public Schools. They've bought 3D printers for the high school. They've bought caliper measurers that they can use with 3D printers. They've done some really neat things. This year, they're going to buy 3D printers for the middle school, which is going to be fantastic, I think, to get the younger kids using that. And then this year, for the first time, we're making a grant to Bergen schools, to Bergen High School. And they're very excited about it. We got a nice note from the science teacher and the principal. And they explained the equipment that they're buying with that, and I couldn't tell you what it is to save my soul. I went to law school because I was bad at science, but it sounds like great stuff. So I know that they'll put it to good use. But we really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about our business, our operation, or anything.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the phone app, the digital coupon thing. I know that it's going to be available, or you want it to be available. You have to be on premise. When you say on premise, is that where the ball drop is, or does on premise also mean the satellites also? How do you monitor that?
Have a Bluetooth beacon in that location. And if your phone communicates with the Bluetooth beacon, then there'll be a little green thing that lights up, in the corner of your app that says, yeah, you're within range of the beacon, and then you can write your ticket. So it's a little beyond my pay grade too, but I think it's going to be a very good system and very foolproof. And again, we've been through it with the Department of Revenue and the testing company that they use for certification.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilman Von Baron?
Yeah, could you just give us a little background on why this fund was established, what it accomplishes? Just, I think I understand the concept. Could you go back through it?
So basically, when we took over the operational lottery back in November 2000, we operated on a little bit different contract with the city. So what we did at that time was the city did not have a guaranteed percentage, but what happened was, or they had a smaller guaranteed percentage, but what happened was at the end of every month, we would, we pay out prizes to players throughout the course of the month, and then we would get our fee, our percentage fee, and then whatever was left would go to the city. And it didn't really give us the ability to run special games, because to get any kind of a different game, we had to come to the city council to get approval to run a special pay table. And it kind of put the city in the business of running the Keno lottery. We came to the city very shortly after we took over, and we said, we would really like to run this differently like we run our other games. It's been a real successful formula. What we do there is we guarantee the city every month, month in, month out, we will pay you 12.5% of every dollar bet. So every dollar bet, you get the first 12.5 cents right off the top. You take 2% of that, you send it to the state, and you keep the rest to spend for community betterment. We manage then the money that's left as a prize fund. So we pay most of that out day to day in small prizes. And then every once in a while we get a larger prize. And then if we have some additional money at the end of the month, the next month we can run, special games. We'll run a higher payout on the 3 spot or the 4 spot. And players really respond well to that. It's sort of like putting your groceries on sale. You get a better price on your Keno ticket, whatever. So people appreciate that. And it's been a very successful formula. Right now, we can build up to $100,000 in that prize fund. And if we end up with, after we're paid and the city's paid their 12 3/4, and we paid all the other prizes, we can build up to 100,000 accumulated funds in that prize fund. Given the growth of the lottery over the years, it's just gotten a little harder to manage at that 100,000 level. We feel like if we had a little more leeway and could manage it up to a 200,000 level, we could have a little more leeway to run special games, to build up a little bigger fund and make it more exciting for the players. So we think it will be a benefit overall to the lottery. I don't see it reducing city payments. I see it, if it has any effect, it'll have an effect of increasing city payments, because we should be able to run a little better special, which will increase play, and you'll get more 12.5%.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the public on this item? Okay. Seeing none, are there any additional comments from council?
If there's no further comments, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025-014.
I will second that.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 24 is ordinance 5704, establishing the rate schedules for electricity and repealing ordinance number 5670. This will be first reading. And we'll have our staff report from Jeff Shanahan, our utility general manager.
This is the rate ordinance for the electric system. We've been through all the utilities now. There's a wrap that up. As mentioned in the staff report, the electric system is both electric distribution and electric production. We have had a number of capital improvement plans, items that we brought to council, major improvements to the system to provide reliability and to allow for some future growth, plus upgrade our system on our interconnections. We reached out to JK Energy. They're the same ones that did the water, sewer, and gas. And when they did the when they did the rate study, they evaluated all the capital improvement plans, our operating budget, looked at the future projects we have, estimated bonding, how much we would have to take on for debt to cover some of these projects. And they determined that overall, we needed a 4% increase in the first 2 years, so in 25 and 26. And then they were recommending a 5% increase in 27 and 28. The only thing that's in this ordinance is we're looking at just the first 2 years. We wanted to implement the first 2 years, see where we're at with the funding, see what the rates do for bonding, see where we'll be at for projects for, as they start coming in, when projects, maybe the supply chain will speed up, projects will come in faster than what we've been seeing. So we took all those into account. We decided that we would only ask for this increase to be for 2 years at 4%. Well, actually for residential customer, it's 3.79, but overall a 4% increase in the revenues for the electric system. And that's what we're asking for in this ordinance, and happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Thank you, Jeff, for providing the information. You know, I'm looking at the residential rate comparison, and Grand Island and Lincoln are somewhat enviable compared to us. And I would say that OPP and NPPD would probably even think even more of that. But I'm clueless when it comes to this. So why is there that kind of a disparity between the different communities? Some are higher, some are lower. We seem to be approximately in the middle.
We're having to do, but we're going through a period where there's a number of major components in the network that are aging, and we're looking at having to not upgrade, but replace some of them. We've now installed, well, we'll be in the process of installing 3 new major substation transformers. Those are significant investments for our system. We've had to work with OPPD and NPPD to install a new transformer at the NPPD substation out west of town. That'll take our interchange capacity at that substation from about 30 MVA to around 100 to 120 MVA. The Unit 8 generator is approaching 45 years of service. We're going to do a rewind on that generator. That's probably well overdue. And then there's some federal regulations that require us to install equipment, which is the ELG project, along with just all of our other capital improvement projects that we do every day. I mean, updating circuit breakers in our substations, rebuilding pumps and valves in our plants and those kind of things. So, you know, there's just a lot of projects we're trying to get brought up to speed, and, you know, we're going to do a best job we can to try to maintain the system as good as we can.
Well, I'll just follow up my question, my comment with one other, and that is, you know, I still remember that one year that we had all the rolling brownouts all around us and our light stayed on. And I think the investment kind of shows, you know, the power is fairly consistent. And I would like to say that I discovered that I was actually the last house on one of the circuit lines, and whatever you guys did took care of that problem, because when Nick Lamb's lights are on, so are mine.
Yes, my name is Larry Marvin, 1945 Morningside Road, apartment 124, Fremont. Yes, I have several questions. I think about a half a year ago, I was here and you were raising the rates, I thought 15%. And some of us thought that was a pretty stiff gouge. And I think you said it would be about $35 on a monthly payment. Now this last utility bill I got from you guys I think it's more than $35. So that's that. And I have a electric furnace. And I thought that those of us that use electricity get a rebate. So how much is the rebate for us using the electricity? So if you're charging 9 cents a kilowatt, do you charge 7%, 7 cents for us? What is the rate? Well, I guess when we got the 15%, were we getting faulty information that we need to be jumping them up? Because if inflation is running 2.5%, and you want 4%, you're getting a little greedy or whatever. But that's just politics. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on this item?
Just, a question was raised, and so I'm going to ask my own question is there a difference between electric rates for people based on the type of furnace or any other apparatus they have in their house?
Councilman Jensen?
I said, wasn't that true at one time? Though there was, if you were all electric, your electric rate was somewhat lower. Maybe that's not true anymore, but at one point that was. Maybe not here. Maybe I'm thinking of somewhere else. There was where if you were all electric, your house was all electric. There was a difference just because you're paying, you were using a lot more electricity than people with normal gas furnaces.
I don't recall that. I don't know that.
I'll make that motion on ordinance 5704.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0. Ordinance 5704, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, establishing rate schedules for electricity consumed by customers of the municipal electric system, defining terms, repealing ordinance number 5670 and all other ordinances or part of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, providing when the rate schedules are effective and providing when the ordinance shall be in full force and effect. First reading.
Item 20.
City manager, when we were looking at the rate ordinance and there were some changes in how we describe different rate classes, we went and did a review of the city's municipal code and found there were some definitions in the municipal code that didn't match up to the rate ordinance we're proposing. What this does is this just matches up the municipal code to the rate ordinance so that both of them use the same language, same naming convention that the ordinance for rates have.
Questions for staff?
Just so I'm clear, this is just basically a language cleanup on this code area here, right? That's what I'm seeing. I'll make the motion to introduce and hold first reading of ordinance 5705.
I'll second.
Motion carries 8-0. Ordinance 5705, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending chapter 3, article 3, section 3-318 of the Fremont Municipal Code, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance, and providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect. First reading.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion carries 8-0.